Part 3 of my list of the top 10 Super Bowls of all time is now in progress. Gone through several interesting games so far, from numbers 10 through 5, but now from 4 on out, this is when the list gets good. The fourth game on my list, and the number 4 Super Bowl of all time in my eyes, John Elway. This one's for John. Super Bowl 32, Broncos beat the Packers, 31-24. This game, from the start, was a foregone conclusion that Green Bay would win. They were 13-point favorites, the defending champs, and viewed by many people to be better than the team that won it all last year. The Broncos at 12-4 had a tremendous start to the year, but a mild falter as of late and saw them stumble into the playoffs as the number 4 seed. From there on, they would go on to defeat Pittsburgh in the conference championship game and advance to the Super Bowl to play the arch-rival Packers, who would upset the 49ers in San Francisco. Now, the only reason, in my opinion, that Green Bay was a 13-point favorite in this game is because of the fact that John Elway had lost 3 Super Bowls prior by big amounts, 39-20, 42-10, and 55-10. That's the only reason why. If they would have focused honestly on the 2 teams and not on Elway's Super Bowl history, this probably wouldn't have been more than a 5 or 6 point spread at the most. But it was, and the Broncos had to live with it. But hey, it's always good being the underdog. Packers started out and drove right down the field. Touchdown from Brett Favre to Antonio Freeman to kick start the game. And from then on, Denver really dominated the first half. They really surprised the Packers, I think, in how they played them. Because Denver ran the football right down their throats with running back Terrell Davis. He would leave the game early in the second quarter with a migraine, but he would come back after halftime and he would win the game's MVP award. Following the Freeman touchdown to start the game, Terrell Davis and John Elway would score on 1-yard runs for the Broncos, and Jason Elam would nail a 51-yard field goal to lead 17-7. Then following that, Brett Favre threw a touchdown pass to his tight end Mark Chmura, who had one of the most athletic catches in the history of the Super Bowl, and that brought the game close to within 17-14. Denver led at the half. The second half would begin, and Terrell Davis would be back in the lineup, so Denver was able to control the football. But Green Bay got the ball, marched right down the field. 27-yard field goal by Ryan Longwell tied the game at 17 apiece. And from then on, Terrell Davis took over. A 1-yard run on a long drive to give Denver the lead, 24-17, was instrumental in helping to steal the upset. But the Packers weren't done yet. Antonio Freeman caught a 13-yard pass from Favre, just strolled right in the end zone, and tied the game at 24. But after that, John Elway, famous for leading comeback drives in his career, led one more big comeback. Long drive, culminating in another touchdown run by Terrell Davis. That would give him 3 rushing touchdowns in the game, and that is a Super Bowl record. Ultimately, Green Bay would fail to convert on a 4th down in Denver territory at the end of the game. And John Elway would finally have his long sought-after Super Bowl ring. He actually would come back next year, play one more season, and the Broncos went 14-2 and defeated the Atlanta Falcons 34-19 to win Super Bowl 33. And then he would retire off in the sunset. This game was close. This game was close from the get-go. I mean, there was a moment where Denver had a big lead, but you never ever felt the game was over until the very end when Denver had finally clinched the victory on the turnover on downs. What really was instrumental in this game was how well Denver ran the football. You know, it was huge. Terrell Davis, the MVP of the game, he would go on to rush for 2,000 yards the next season But in this game, total 157 on 30 carries and 3 scores. Major, major production out of a 6th-round running back. Now we move on to number 3. This is my personal favorite Super Bowl. This one I remember the most because I've never been more entertained by a Super Bowl than this one. And that would be Super Bowl 43. The Pittsburgh Steelers clinched their 6th ring with a victory over the surprising Arizona Cardinals, 27-23. This game, I said going in would be 27-17 Pittsburgh win. I was close. I was damn close. But as Arizona, they were a very resilient football team. They hung tough with the Steelers. The start of the game was a scoreless start. First quarter, no action. Other than a Jeff Reed field goal early on. And then, pretty much from then on out, it was anyone's game. Pittsburgh would ultimately take a 10-0 lead at the start of the second quarter as Gary Russell would score on a 1-yard touchdown. Pittsburgh dominated the time of possession as Arizona failed to really do much on offense in the first half, other than a touchdown drive that culminated in a Kurt Warner to Ben Patrick touchdown with under 5 minutes remaining. But then coming up after that, Ben Roethlisberger, the quarterback for the Steelers, would throw a ball that was tipped and intercepted, and Arizona had the football at the 1-yard line. But Defensive Player of the Year for 2008, linebacker James Harrison, was there to save them. Normally a blitzer, Harrison dropped back, stayed very, very tight coverage on wide receiver Anquan Bolden. Ball pretty much hit him right between the numbers, and he just took off down the sidelines the other way for the longest play in Super Bowl history, a 100-yard interception return. And that would pretty much make a huge momentum swing in the game. As opposed to going in the locker room down 14-10, you go in up 17-7. That was huge for the Steelers. The third quarter again was like the first, scoreless except for a Jeff Reed field goal. 21-yard attempt, right through the uprights. Steelers took the lead entering the fourth quarter 20-7. So far, the Arizona Cardinals, number 2 ranked pass offense, shut down by the best pass defense in the league. But then, the floodgates opened. Arizona would score a safety and 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. A 1-yard from Kurt Warner to Larry Fitzgerald, who had the most prolific postseason a receiver had ever had, and then a 64-yard slant that Larry Fitzgerald took right up the middle of the Steeler defense for a touchdown. All this happened within the span of like 4 minutes, and Steeler fans were just stunned, myself included. But what did the Steelers do? They regrouped, got the ball with a little over 2 minutes to go and a few timeouts. Ben Roethlisberger, what he did every game that year when he had to, drove him right down the field. And ultimately, a 6-yard touchdown pass to wide receiver Santonio Holmes, who would go on to register 9 catches for 131 yards and a touchdown in the game, would ultimately be the deciding factor. And it wasn't just any ordinary touchdown. It was a toe tap in the end zone. Perfect pass by Ben Roethlisberger. It was either Holmes gets it or no one gets it. 3 guys are in the area of Holmes that played for Arizona. 3 guys are in the general area. And they couldn't come close. Ben threw that ball right where it needed to be. Holmes brought it down, and then in Arizona's next drive, with about 3 seconds left, the Steelers got a fumble recovery, courtesy of defensive end Brett Kiesel, and kneeled on the clock, and the game was over. This game, if you were a Steeler fan in particular, was a hell of a game to watch, because your emotion went from confident to whoa to oh crap, we're down to holy crap, this is the best game I ever saw. That's how I felt the whole game. It was an unbelievable Super Bowl. NFL Network did their list of the top 10 Super Bowls and ranked this one number 1. I'm not so sure I would put it at number 1. I have it number 3 right here. But personally, as a favorite, unbiased opinion, it's my all-time favorite Super Bowl. But thinking it from a more or less statistical, logical, analytical standpoint, this is the 3rd best Super Bowl I ever saw and absolutely deserves to be on this list. And a lot of people are going to question my motives for putting number 2 up so high. Because I never even got to see the game because I wasn't alive yet. But I have the DVD for this game. I've seen it several times. It's an awesome game. Number 2 on my list is Super Bowl 13 between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys. The two best teams of the 70s button heads for the right to win their 3rd Lombardi trophy. Steelers went into this game 14-2, blew out the Broncos and the Oilers in the playoffs by a combined score of 67-15. We're just on fire. The defense was at its peak. Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, league MVP with 28 touchdowns. Nobody had more Pro Bowlers than the Steelers that year. Awesome team. The blue-collar Steelers were a direct contrast to the Cowboys. White collar, prim and proper, look at us, call themselves America's team. Steelers heading into that game were the slight favorite, and they definitely came to play. Both teams did. The game started off very, very high-paced, as the Steelers are scoring a 28-yard touchdown pass from Bradshaw to John Stallworth, and then right before the end of the first quarter, Roger Staubach, Captain America, Hall of Fame quarterback for the Cowboys, would hit Tony Hill for a 39-yard touchdown. Following that, it really was kind of, in and out for both teams until the Cowboys were able to cause a fumble of Terry Bradshaw that one of the defenders, Mike Hagman, returned for a touchdown, 37 yards. And that put Dallas up 14-7. But Pittsburgh, as they did, came right back. 75-yard touchdown pass from Terry Bradshaw to John Stallworth. I love the quote from John Facenda when they did the NFL Films version of this game. They said, John Stallworth is like a mix between sipping whiskey and white lightning. Smooth, with a good, strong finishing kick. And that's just exactly how he played the game. It was quicker than you thought. It was a big guy. Could make any catch you needed. For most people's money, the best receiver the Steelers ever had. And then finally, before the end of the half, an interception by cornerback Mel Blount set up the Steelers, and Terry Bradshaw took full advantage of it, throwing his 3rd touchdown before halftime on a 7th-yard pass to running back Rocky Bleier. Rocky Bleier jokes about that catch, saying that he was like 18, 19, 20 feet off the ground, but just leapt up, saw the ball, caught it in his hands, pulled it in. Beautiful play. The 3rd quarter would be very, very emotional. Dallas was able to take advantage of the fact that the Steelers didn't have Stallworth the rest of the game. He was out with severe leg cramps. Pittsburgh really couldn't move the ball much in the second half, other than early in the 4th. And the Cowboys made them pay. They drove down and looked all for the world like they were going to tie it on a pass from Roger Staubach to Hall of Fame tight end Jimmy Smith, who had come to Dallas for one season to win a Super Bowl after having a great career with the Cardinals. Drops it right in the end zone. Rafael Septien would kick a 27-yard field goal, and Dallas would trail 21-17 entering the 4th. Then entering the crucial climax of this game, Franco Harris. 22-yard touchdown run in which the ref got in the way of one of the Cowboys' defenders and was bowled over by a lineman right after that. But Franco didn't care, just ran right in the end zone. Legs pumping high, racing to pay dirt. 22 yards. And then following that, the Steelers didn't attempt an onside kick, but kicker Roy Jarrell slipped and the ball squibbed, and the Cowboys fumbled it, and the Steelers got it with prime field position at the Cowboys' red zone. Terry Bradshaw threw his 4th record touchdown pass of the game to receiver Lynn Swann, 18 yards out, and the Steelers would hold on, take the lead 35-17. The Cowboys would eventually score 2 touchdowns on passes from Roger Staubach, but by that time it was too late. There was not enough time left for them to win, and a recovery on an onside kick by Rocky Bleier sealed the game. This game was a battle. This game was a war, because these two teams really didn't like each other. Because the clash in culture, the styles of the team, and the way that they played. One went with defense, the Steelers. The other one was like more or less a high voltage offense in Dallas. And it made for so many great games between these two teams in the 70s. The Hall of Famers on these teams. I think there were 13 Hall of Famers that played in this game, combined between Pittsburgh and Dallas. It's an unbelievable game. Momentum changes, emotional battles, everything. This game had it all. All right, coming up next, the greatest Super Bowl game of all time. Stay tuned to hear it.